Welcome to week 5 of Bible Studies for Life, and Merry Christmas. Don't know when you're watching this, if it's before or after Christmas, hope you've had a Merry Christmas. Thank you for watching and appreciate that. Before we go into our passage here, Matthew chapter 2, which is an after Christmas passage for the Sunday after Christmas, be sure and subscribe, like, hit the thumbs up button, comment, tell us where you're watching from, give us a Merry Christmas. Share the video with somebody else. My videos are shared about 10 times a week. So I appreciate those of you that are sharing. Actually, a little bit more than 10 times every week they get shared. So thank you for doing that. All right, we're going to look at Matthew chapter 2. This is the story of the 3 kings, the 3 wise men. You know, we've got the various, depending on which song you happen to be singing, I guess. After Christmas, and we'll see how we know that, but it's really probably a couple of years. This is not a manger scene that takes place here, okay? Even though I know they're in all the stories, and we got the nativity set up, and there they are after, okay? After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, wise men, they are wise men, from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star at its rising and have come to worship him." We have come to worship him. He was born King of the Jews. So they show up in Jerusalem. Their thought is, this must be where, right? Let's go to Jerusalem. That's where the next king should be. So in their minds, this is where we ought to go, right? But the thing about these guys is they are wise men. They're wise. That's a designation for them, but it's also not just a title. It is descriptive, right? They have earned that title because they are wise. But I love this, right? They see this person born King of the Jews. However they have determined this, and they determine we need to go worship him. No, they're not Jews. They're Gentiles. But they want to come worship him. Well, right off the bat, now Matthew is a Jewish tilted gospel. It's not like Luke. Luke is much more Gentile tilted. Matthew's certainly a Jewish tilted. Lots of this fulfilled prophecy because. We'll see that actually in the passage today. But there is also this recognition that the King of the Jews, Jesus, born King of the Jews, is the King of the universe. He is the King of the earth. He is King of all people. He is King of Jews and Gentiles. He is King of all, right? And they're going to come worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was deeply disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. So he assembled all the chief priests and scribes of the people and asked them where the Messiah would be born. Okay, so you've got King Herod, who is Roman king, in touch with Judaism, king that is obviously, like a lot of kings, especially at that day and time, but let's say always, self-absorbed, right? And he is disturbed. What do you mean? You've got a king of the Jews. I'm the king of the Jews, right? I mean, he's the one who can summon the chief priests and the scribes. He can tell y'all, come talk to me. He didn't have to ask permission for them. You come here, they come here, right? And he's disturbed. And when the king is disturbed, well, all Jerusalem is too. The whole city gets disturbed. And so he asks, where is the Messiah going to be born? So he has some clear understanding of some Jewish theology, right? Some Jewish understanding of the world. He needs to. He's around them all the time. Certainly, he's in touch with what's going on. And they answer, in Bethlehem of Judea, they told him, because this is what was written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, because out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Okay, so here they're going to quote this passage, right, the prophet, and they're going to say, this is how we know, all right? Look, there are over 300 prophecies in the Old Testament about the Messiah. Where he would be born, when he would be born, his male or female, how he would live, how he would die, the family line that he would come out of. I mean, there's 300 of them, different things that he would do, all these different ones. Jesus fulfills every single one. Every single one of them, Jesus fulfills. And many of them, like this one, he had no control over. Some might say, well, yeah, but he knew the scripture, and so he kind of lived in a way to try to show himself as a fulfillment of them, except he couldn't have decided his birth, right, where he would be born. He couldn't have decided that. He couldn't have decided his death and how that would happen and what would happen. So obviously there were many of these that he had no control over, this being one of many, right? So he knows it's in Bethlehem, right? Then Herod secretly summoned the wise men and asked them the exact time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, report back to me so that I too can go and worship him. Ah, you see who Herod is, right? He secretly summons the wise men, right? He asks the wise men, hey, I need to come here and talk to me, because they're going around asking people, and they're getting everybody upset. And King Herod says, come talk to me. It's going to be in Bethlehem, right? So I need you, if you would, tell me, when did the star appear, right? When's the exact time the star appeared to you? What's he doing? Well, he's trying to get a gauge on how old this person is. Was it 20 years ago? Am I looking for a teenager? Am I looking for somebody in their 30s, 50s? You know, am I looking for a baby? What am I looking for? What's the story? But then he says, go and search carefully for the child, because they tell him, well, it was a couple of years earlier. When you find him, we'll know that later. When you find him, report back to me so that I can go too and worship him. Well, why does he need to know when he doesn't need to know when the star appeared if all he wants to do is go and worship? Just find out where he is and I'll go worship. I want to come too. There's something else going on, okay? After hearing the king, they went on their way, and there it was, the star they had seen at its rising. So it appears that the star was not, they didn't see it all the time, right? They saw it early, it started them on their way, and then they see it again here, right? And it led them until it came and stopped above the place where the child was. It stopped above the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overwhelmed with joy, because they hadn't been seeing it consistently. That's why they ended up in Jerusalem thinking, well, this must be where, right? Entering the house, you see that? Not the stable. They saw the child with Mary, his mother, and falling to their knees, they worshiped him. And then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay. They see the child with Mary, and they worshiped him. Falling to their knees, they worshiped him. What a scene for Mary, right? I mean, you go back, and there's a verse later where Mary's treasuring these things up, right? She's thinking about them. What a scene for her. I mean, after the birth, right? And the shepherds come. But then you're just living life. And you're raising a baby, a toddler, and you're changing diapers, and you're doing all the things that you do with a baby, right? And then suddenly here come these 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. We have no idea how many. If you notice that it doesn't say how many. 3 gifts. We don't know how many. Here come these wise men, probably more than one wise men, so at least 2. But they show up with all of the accoutrements of their travel, right? They show up and they come into your home and they see your baby and they fall to the floor and they worship. In whatever sense worship means to them, right? They are probably not acting out in Jewish worship, singing psalms, but they are worshiping Jesus. And then they give their gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Valuable, all 3 of these valuable gifts, different meaning behind them. You think of gold maybe as a king, and frankincense as a priest, and myrrh as an embalming. Not exactly the thing you might think of necessarily for a child, right? But we understand the significance of those gifts. I don't know that we ought to go too far into the significance of those things, but outside of the fact that they are extremely valuable, and the family was going to need that. Okay, now we skip. Look, here we're in verse 11. Now we're in verse 16. So, they get a warning, don't go back. Go a different way when you go home. And Joseph and Mary get a warning. You need to get out of town. They go to Egypt. They leave. He doesn't know that yet, but he knows the wise men have left. Then Herod, when he realized that he had been outwitted by the wise men, now this is just a funny kind of a thing. They were wise men. Herod was not wise. Okay, we know he wasn't wise. He'd been outwitted by wise guys. Well, yeah, because you're not wise, right? He flew into a rage and he gave orders to massacre all the boys in and around Bethlehem, 2 years old and under. We'll go back here. When is the exact time the star appeared? That's why I wanted to know. They don't come back. He doesn't know exactly who it is. Just kill all the boys, all the little boys under the age of 2 years and under. In keeping with the time he had learned from the wise men, then what was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. Okay, the wise men recognized they were wise men, went to worship Jesus. Herod, being a fool, goes to kill Jesus. This prophecy is fulfilled from Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be consoled because they are no more. It's hard to picture what happened in Bethlehem that day, those weeks, however long it took, as all of these little boys are rounded up and killed. It's horror, horrible. One of the hard things about understanding Scripture and understanding life and understanding our walk with God is recognizing that there are times when, because of the evil of man, people suffer for the Lord to accomplish His purpose. And how horrible that is. We suffer not because of the evil of God, but because of the evil of man. And these children and these parents, these families, unimaginable pain and horror in their lives because of the evil of this man named Herod, who's in a rage and has willing accomplices in his army who will do what he tells them to. It's not the classic Christmas message, is it? I mean, we love the part where here the wise men are and they're giving gifts and they're worshiping and how beautiful that is, but there is this part of the story too that is horrific. It's a massacre that happens, right? A massacre that happens. My. It's not easy to deal with the horrors of life. And sometimes we think today that things are horrible, that we see shootings or we see the killings that happen in the war that occurs, and we think how horrible that is. But look at this. We haven't invented anything new. All right, the evil still persists. But one day, salvation's coming. We'll see that next week. All right, looking forward to that. Hey, thanks for watching. Appreciate you doing that. Subscribe, like, comment, share with somebody else. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you next week.